So,
good afternoon. I'm Sherman Chow with the 11 News breaking news update. You're looking at Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo holding a press conference on the impacts of Beryl one day after landfall. Let's listen in.
I have a lot of questions about what to expect in the coming days, and I'm going to give an update, and then I'm going to give an opportunity to CenterPoint to offer an update and answer questions. So I'm going to just give my update in English and in Spanish, and then we'll call them up. So we're out there doing assessments already. Our engineering team which is going to take care of the debris removal with the precincts and in partnership with other communities. We're already seeing what you've suffered. So trees falling down, fences down, large signs down. Sadly, those images of the trees right in the middle of the homes. So I know that there's a lot of people hurting right now. Our very own NRG Stadium, as some of you may have heard, sustained structure damage. So we have damage to some fences, several awnings, large signage, and the roof was also, parts of the roof were blown off. We want to err on the side of transparency here and set expectations as best we can, because that's what we would want for ourselves. Do I have all the answers? No, I don't. But whatever answers I do have, I'm sharing with you, and we're going to try to be as clear as possible about what we don't know yet. So we do have some reason for hope. A lot of us are not one of the lucky ones, but the situation is improving. In terms of the threats right now, the most dangerous situation is the heat. So it continues to be weather related. It's going to be very hot, as we can already feel, in the National Weather Service is issuing heat advisories for the coming days. So if you are going to be outside and just, we're not totally acclimatized to this level of heat right now for this year. So just be responsible. Remember to drink water. Take breaks from the heat if you can. Go sit in your car for a little bit. Visit a cooling center, a mall, movie theater, whatever's open right now that has air conditioning is important. And it might sound a little bit unnecessary to say this, but it's very easy to get dehydrated. I myself was dehydrated last summer. I was just everything was aching. I could barely get off the couch. I just felt really nauseous. Turns out I hadn't drank enough water while riding my bike outdoors in the summer. So, it happens. It can be dangerous. You may not know what it is. So just, take these precautions so that your situation doesn't end up being even worse, even more uncomfortable, and you don't end up in the hospital. I know folks are seeing issues with fuel, so long lines at gas stations, and the main point here, I really want to encourage people not to panic. We can get through this, okay? If you are medically fragile, if you are not being able to tolerate the heat, you can call us. If it's not urgent, you can call 211, and a team will connect with you, and they've been doing wellness checks all day, and they'll go out there, they'll see what you need, they'll transport you somewhere cool if that's the answer, they'll help you refill your oxygen or whatever it is that you need, they will help you with. If it's an emergency, of course, you can call 911, and so as long as you take care of yourself, watching out for dehydration, not being outside for too long, and taking care when driving, because there are those tree limbs, there are those power lines, then we can do our part of responding. We have had several senior living facilities that are without power request that kind of help, and so it is very uncomfortable, but it does not have to be dangerous if we all control it. So that's another reason why the fuel situation, it's scary, but we can handle this. We can't control exactly when those gas stations are going to get fuel back or power back. So the ones that don't have power, they can't supply the fuel, and the ones that do have fuel are seeing limitations because everybody's going there. So just don't panic, and then remember to be courteous. Only take what you need. If you do manage to get to the front of the line in one of the gas stations that has fuel and the ability to to distribute it. So if you have a 5-gallon cans for your generator, don't fill them all. Just be thoughtful about the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of families that are facing the same issue. With grocery stores, they're doing everything they can to provide for the community, so also gratitude for them. So the recommendation is just don't go in there expecting you're going to find perishables. The grocery stores that don't have power to fuel their refrigerated areas will still have the non-perishables. They've given away the perishable items, and the ones that do have perishables probably have already run out or are running out. So, but in terms of more broadly, the supply chain, they're fine. The port is not open yet, but for example, with the fuel, they're getting it through trucks. We're not in a situation where we are going to run out of food or where it is just impossible for fuel to get to Harris County in the event of a serious emergency. So just a note here before I move on, this isn't the first time, and certainly it won't be the last time that we have to go through a hurricane season or something, some sort of event in which we are without access to some of those necessities. And so let's use this as a reminder. Once we're past the discomfort of this time without power, once our homes are repaired, just remember to have provisions for 7 days. And every time during hurricane season that your tank is half full, picture it that the halfway point is the empty line in hurricane season. You always want to keep it over half full. So sometimes we don't take those recommendations seriously. We figure we'll be okay, but that'll make it so much more comfortable if this happens again. So here's some good news. President Biden's been trying to send aid. He directly and his administration have been reaching out to myself and to the mayor since yesterday, asking how they can help, very much leaning forward, very much pushing for us to be able to receive what we need. And that really is how they've always treated Harris County. And I've had a couple pretty thorough conversations with the president this morning, and the way it works is the federal government needs the state government to issue a request before they can grant the request. And so, as we know, Governor Abbott has been on an important economic trip in Asia, and so we had not received that request. Well, we found out that it was possible for the acting governor, lieutenant governor, to be able to send it, because Governor Abbott's not acting governor right now, so he couldn't do it. So Lieutenant Governor sent that request out this morning. As soon as that happened, the president had his team also there with him, and he just said, we're gonna get this done immediately. And so they have approved certain assistance for Harris County and for the region, for the impacted counties, and I want to say for all the counties. So what does this mean? It means we can get resources more quickly from the federal government. So for example, yesterday evening I got a call from our CEO of our public hospital system. And it turned out that the LBJ hospital, which is a key pillar of our healthcare infrastructure, had lost power. And not only that, but their generator had also failed. So without AC, it got so warm in the hospital that people's lives were at risk. And he had spent already time trying to get his hands on that second generator. They had to shut down all operating rooms except for 2, which meant a lot of even emergency operations were delayed. Obviously impacted their ability to provide food to patients, people who were ill, to move critical medication to cooling trucks. They had to move critical medication to cooling trucks, and it impacted their ability to keep electronic medical records. So fortunately, CenterPoint was able to quickly restore their power several hours later, but it was a window that was feasible for the hospital, that it was okay, it was good. But we won't be able to do that in every instance. And so in the event that we have another urgent situation like that one, or where for just physical reasons, it's something that can't be repaired that quickly, we can now call on the federal government to send us the kind of generators that we might need for critical facilities before all of the repairs are done, some of which are just going to take longer. So it also means as you all know, fire departments, police departments have been working around the clock on rescues, on where government agencies are going to be working on debris removal. All of that is very costly. So this will allow our various first responder agencies to receive reimbursements for those expenses, which will help us be better prepared for the next ones. And what this also will do is it makes it more likely that we will be able to get direct financial support for the individuals affected. We don't yet have the exact count, which is a requirement step we have to go through in order to receive that assistance, but I would say it's more likely than not that we'll be able to get it, especially with this attention from the president himself. Another piece of good news, we didn't have any water rescues overnight. As far as Harris County is concerned, I'm not sure about the numbers in the city of Houston, but usually it's pretty representative. So this bodes well, generally speaking, not having to focus on, somebody that tried to touch a power line or didn't see a downed tree, means that we can focus our resources on emergencies and also the types of calls that we have seen an uptake on, which is seniors and medically fragile individuals who need help. And so the takeaway here is we do depend on you to help keep you safe in that sense, as I was mentioning. Just give us a call 211 if it's not urgent, call 911 if it is. Normally, during power outages like these, people are used to hearing about shelters. Because the power loss is so extensive and there are certain steps that the Red Cross and the government have to go through to be able to open a shelter under the law, we don't have a shelter right now. In other words, there isn't a place where people can go and spend the night and cool off. That all sounds very scary, except for the fact that normally these shelters are severely underutilized. During the derecho, we had hundreds of thousands of people without power. Maybe a couple of people visited our several shelters here and there. And so it's not a major issue, and we had the same situation during the flooding near the San Jacinto River. So, and as I said, because we have this ability to respond to those 211 calls, if it's somebody who, they're not in an urgent need a rescue right now situation, but they need a cool place to be, they need, whatever resource, we can provide that, just reach out. Community centers, multipurpose centers, there are many folks in our community that are used to visiting those, whether it be in their city or unincorporated Harris County. So many of them are not open right now because they don't have power. And we do, though, have cooling centers.
All right, thanks for joining us on the 411. I'm Marcelino Benito.
I'm Cheryl Mercedes. We are listening now.
And there you can also call 911. You can also call 211 if you need transportation to one of the cooling centers. But we have 14. So those are daytime cooling centers all around the county. There are 14 between the city of Houston and outside the city of Houston, Harris County partnerships. In terms of the other answers to other questions, I just want you to know we are working with all our partners, all levels of government, to move this as quickly as possible. I do recognize, though, the number one issue right now is power. And so that's why, first I want to share a piece of good news there. Overnight, the number of outages in Harris County went from 1.69 million to 1.29 million. In terms of the region, 2.2 million is now down to 1.68 million. And so that was as of noon today. So by now it's 4. The number we hope is better. And so that's great. I'm really grateful that CenterPoint made themselves available to give the community an update right now and answer questions. So I want to facilitate them being today. And obviously they don't work for me, they don't report to me. But what I can do as a leader is advocate for that transparency and facilitate that conversation between the community and the power utilities. So I really believe from my interactions that everybody's operating in good faith, that everybody's working to respond as quickly as possible. And so I'm going to just repeat in Spanish, and then I'll give an opportunity to Paul Locke and his colleague here to speak. Let me go back to my Spanish remarks. So, buenas tardes. Estamos, yo sé, cansados, frustrados, tenemos calor, todos estamos batallando a dormir y encima de eso queremos refrescarnos, ya estamos cansados de las tormentas. Hay miembros de la comunidad que han sufrido 2 o 3 veces con esta, entonces en solo los últimos 2 meses. Sé que con ese calor no vemos lo único. También hay árboles caídos, estamos ya haciendo las evaluaciones en las calles alrededor del condado y hemos visto esos árboles caídos en medio de los hogares, las cercas derrumbadas, señales grandes caídas. De hecho, en nuestro estadio de NRG hemos incurrido daño de cercas, de varios toldos, de letreros grandes y encima de eso el techo, pedazos del techo salieron volando. Entonces, inclusive se ve el campo donde juegan fútbol americano. Lo que quiero hacer es estar hacia el lado de la transparencia. Entonces, voy a compartir las respuestas a la información que tengo. Sé que la pregunta principal es la electricidad, entonces hemos invitado a representantes de CenterPoint para que respondan a preguntas de la prensa y también den la información que ellos tienen. En cuanto tengamos más información, la vamos a compartir. Pero hay esperanza, todos estamos escuchando de familia o amigos que tienen ya la luz restaurada. Yo no soy una de los afortunados, pero sí está mejorando la situación con la electricidad. En este momento, lo más peligroso es el calor. Va a ser mucho calor esta semana. El Servicio Meteorológico Nacional ha dicho que todos los días de esta semana vamos a tener avisos de calor. Entonces, recuerden tomar agua, tomarse un tiempo para ir a descansar en un área acondicionada, bien sea en el carro o ir a otro sitio. Puede sonar un poco tonto decir, ok, obvio tenemos que tomar agua, pero es peligroso. Mucha gente muere anualmente por la deshidratación y ahora sin aire acondicionado, sin electricidad, se vuelve una amenaza más grande. De hecho, hace un año me sentía muy mal, me dolía todo, no me podía levantar del sillón, me sentía mareada. Resulta que me deshidraté por montar bicicleta afuera en el verano y no tomar suficiente agua. Entonces, estén pendientes de eso. Finalmente, necesitamos de su ayuda para también poderlo cuidar. Entonces, tenemos recursos disponibles. Si tiene una situación de emergencia, puede llamar al 911 como siempre. Gracias a su apoyo, no hemos tenido que hacer rescates, bien sea porque alguien no evitó un árbol caído en medio de la calle o estamos preocupados que de repente la gente fuera a tocar uno de los cables eléctricos que se habían caído, pero todos han sido muy responsables. Entonces, tenemos los recursos disponibles para apoyar a personas que necesitan ayuda urgentemente. Puede también ser que usted necesita ayuda dada la situación, pero no es súper urgente. Por ejemplo, los hogares de personas mayores o si usted es una persona mayor o una persona con la salud delicada, puede llamar al 211 y un equipo se encargará de ir a visitarlo, ver cómo está y llevarlo a un sitio donde haya aire acondicionado, ayudarle con oxígeno que necesite, diálisis, bueno, lo que sea. Entonces, por favor, contáctenos al 211. Si no es urgente, es un grupo de organizaciones sin ánimo de lucro con mucha seguridad, con mucha confianza. Puede usted llamar, aunque sea inmigrante, aunque no tenga papeles. El 911 es para urgencias. En cuanto a la gasolina, sé que no hay mucha gasolina en el condado, eso puede causar pánico y lo que les pido es que tengamos esa paciencia porque no hay necesidad de pánico. El puerto está cerrado todavía, pero hay autobuses, hay maneras de traer gasolina al condado Harris. En este momento, la razón por la cual no hay suficiente gasolina es por la electricidad. Sin esa electricidad, las gasolineras no pueden proveer la gasolina. Y aquellas que sí tienen electricidad, pues están ya quedando sin gasolina porque todo el mundo está yendo. Entonces, a estar tranquilos con eso, si nos cuidamos bien, no hay por qué que este calor nos sea de gran problema, más de el desespero, y si tiene algún problema médico nos puede contactar. Si usted logra llegar al frente de la línea a una gasolinera que sí tenga electricidad, sea amable, solamente lleve lo que necesite. Si tiene 8 de los galones de gasolina, no los llene todos, llene lo que necesite. En cuanto a los supermercados, están haciendo todo lo posible por ayudar. Muchos de ellos no tienen la electricidad para mantener fríos los alimentos perecederos, entonces, pero aunque ese sea el caso, tienen los alimentos no perecederos, entonces puede visitar cualquier supermercado que esté abierto. Los que tienen alimentos perecederos y no tienen luz los están regalando, y igual los que sí tengan luz, lo más seguro es que ya se acabaran los perecederos, entonces nos va a tocar acostumbrarnos un poquito a comer un poco distinto, pero no es gran cosa, y hay suficientes supermercados que sí tienen lo que se necesita. Es también un recordatorio, de repente un lado positivo de esto es un recordatorio de prepararnos para esta temporada de huracanes. Durante esta temporada de huracanes debemos tener el tanque del automóvil al menos medio lleno. Cuando su tanque llegue a la mitad, considere como si se hubiera ya acabado y estuviera vacío, y vuelva y lo llena, porque uno nunca sabe. Y tener 7 días de provisiones para comer, medicina, la mascota, etcétera. Otro pedazo de buenas noticias. El presidente Biden ha estado muy pendiente. Hablé con él 2 veces esta mañana. Desde ayer nos ha estado buscando tanto a mí como al alcalde para ver cómo nos ayudan. El gobernador, como saben, está en un viaje importante económico de trabajo en Asia. Entonces, el gobernador no puede firmar las peticiones que se requieren para que el gobierno federal nos pueda enviar ayuda. Esta mañana nos dimos cuenta y logramos que el vicegobernador lo pudiera hacer, entonces ya el vicegobernador Patrick ha firmado eso, y al minuto el presidente empujó para que nos otorgaran esa ayuda. Entonces, ¿qué significa? Significa que podemos recibir recursos más rápidamente. Por ejemplo, ayer el hospital de LBJ, que es un hospital muy importante en nuestra comunidad, se quedó sin luz. El generador también falló, no tenían aire acondicionado, las vidas de los pacientes estaban en riesgo, tuvieron que sacar medicinas, tuvieron que operar, tuvieron que cerrar las salas de operación, solo tenían 2, entonces inclusive operaciones urgentes no se pudieron llevar a cabo. Al fin, CenterPoint logró reparar lo que estaba dañado, y por coincidencia era algo fácil de reparar, pero si no lo hubiera sido, ahora tenemos la alternativa de llamar al gobierno federal y que ellos nos envíen urgentemente un generador, por ejemplo, si algo así volviera a suceder antes de que se termine de arreglar todos los postes de luz. También significa que las agencias públicas, policía, bomberos, etcétera, van a poder recibir reembolso, y también pues eso los ayuda a estar mejor preparados para cualquier desastre a futuro. Lo otro es que hace más posible que vayamos a recibir ayuda federal para individuos, fondos directos para las familias impactadas. Hemos hablado también de los refugios en el pasado, esta vez por lo que no hay electricidad, no tenemos los refugios de los que normalmente hablamos, o sea, refugios de donde uno puede pasar toda la noche. Lo bueno es que realmente la gente no usa esos refugios mucho. Ahorita durante el derecho, durante los vientos, tuvimos de repente un par de personas. Entonces, lo que sí tenemos, como expliqué antes, es la habilidad de ir a visitarlo y ayudarlo. Entonces, llame al 211 si no es urgente, 911 si sí es urgente. La mayoría de nuestros centros comunitarios, centros multipropósito, lugares donde normalmente pueda ir, actividades, puede que estén cerrados. Entonces, bueno, lo más seguro es que ya sepan cuál está cerrado, pero sí les quiero decir que hay centros donde puede ir durante el día, más no en la noche, pero durante el día, a estar un rato en aire acondicionado. Eso es lo que se llama los cooling centers. Hemos establecido 14 a lo largo del condado con la ayuda de la ciudad. Vamos a seguir trabajando para recibir toda la información y compartirla, pero yo sé que finalmente lo que tiene todo el mundo en la mente son los apagones. Entonces, anoche de 1.67 millones de apagones, en Harris County estamos ya a 1.29 millones. Igual son muchísimos, pero es mejor. En la región de 2.2 millones a 1.68, eso fue a mediodía, entonces ahora lo más seguro es que el número haya mejorado aún más. Me agradezco que CenterPoint esté aquí presente para contestar preguntas. Obviamente ellos no trabajan para mí, no es una oficina de gobierno, pero los quería invitar porque lo que sí puedo hacer como líder es formar esa transparencia, fomentar esa conversación, facilitar esa conversación entre la comunidad y la empresa de servicios de electricidad. Entonces, estarán aquí respondiendo preguntas de la prensa. Por mis interacciones, basadas en las interacciones que he tenido estos días y realmente durante ya años, mi impresión es que todos están actuando de buena fe y buscan resolver esto lo más pronto posible. Entonces, vamos a invitar aquí a Paul Locke y a su colega para que nos ayuden a entender cuál va a ser la situación. So let me call up Paul Locke.
Thank you, Judge. Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Locke. I work for CenterPoint Energy as the Director of Local Government Affairs. With me is Michelle Hunley, who is in our Corporate Communications Group. Thought I'd start off with just giving you a quick update on what's been going on over the past couple of days, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So when the storm blew through, we lost 2.2 million customers system-wide, which is 80% of the customers we serve in the Houston region. After it blew through, we went through an assessment phase, going out looking to see where the damage is. If you look at the number of customers that are out, it appears that Harris County was hit the hardest of all the counties we serve. We plan to wrap up our assessment phase tonight, and sometime as soon as we have an estimated restoration timeline, we will release that to you. Today was the first day we had over 12,000 linemen in the field working to restore power, and as the judge said, we've gone from 2.2 million out to 1.6 million. So, and one thing I want to point out is whenever we have a storm like this, every Houston area CenterPoint employee has a role in helping get power back on as quickly as possible. So with that, I'll open up to questions that anyone may have.
There were some questions about what exactly the policy is for storms like this, or mutual aid, mutual assistance crews brought in and stationed just outside the eye of the storm for Beryl, or what is the process for times like this?
So typically they come, my understanding, they come just outside the region because we want them to be safe. Safety is our core value, and we don't want them in the eye of the storm. And so, and it really doesn't matter. We need about, depending on the size of the storm, we need a day or two to assess before we even can deploy them. We originally asked for 2,500 mutual assistance crews, and then we got more. And we've got, please know that we've got 17 staging sites around the region, and most of them are outside of here.
You've been listening to Judge Lina Hidalgo with an update on day one after Beryl's landfall. The main concern for folks remains power outages. The judge says across Harris County, we did drop down to 1.29 million outages. Region-wide, that number now 1.68 million. And the good news is those numbers do continue to drop. She said some gas stations also without power, making it difficult for folks to get fuel. The judge urging folks to only take what they need.
Yeah, and CenterPoint Energy officials on hand also at this press conference with key updates. Paul Locke there speaking, you just saw before they came to us, with CenterPoint saying they lost 80% of the customers they serve in the Houston region. Harris County was the hardest hit. An assessment phase will wrap up tonight, and no official restoration timeline just yet. There are 12,000 linemen, he says, in the fields.
Some good news, though. We learned there were no water rescues in Harris County overnight.
In 4.5 days. And now we're at 2.2 million. So I can't give you a timeline, but it's not going to be tomorrow. But and look, we live here, we work here, we have employees that don't have power as well. It's miserable. Nobody wants to sleep in a house that's 85 degrees. But on the flip side, you got to remember, Houston is the is one of the largest economies in the world, and and not having power impacts that economic engine. So we're motivated to get people back on as quickly as possible.
When do you think that timeline is going to be available? I'm asking because, there are people who want to know, should I just leave town and come back? And they don't know if their car's going to come back on in an hour or so.
So the best, I don't know. I asked for it before I came down here. They thought they could have it today, but we will release it as soon as possible and know that it's going to be a system-wide timeline. It's not going to be, we're not going to be able to break it down by county or street or region. It's going to be a system-wide. Does that make sense? Like, we serve from the Woodlands to Galveston and Mount Bellevue to Sealy. So it's going to be a system-wide restoration timeline.
Acting Governor Dan Patrick said that CenterPoint will have to answer for its response to now Tropical Storm Beryl. Any comment on the response to that?
I don't, I heard about that. I think I'm not sure I'm going to pass on that. Michelle, do you know anything about that?
I can't speak to it,
I can't speak to it,
what he was referring to.
but maybe you two can connect offline and get an answer. Yes, ma'am.
Customers are saying that they're seeing inconsistent data on the outage tracker online. Like, for example, the number of active outages often rises and the number of customers affected falls. So the question we're hearing is, does CenterPoint know how many outages are actually active, which have been restored, and where they are?
Yeah, take that.
Hi, so again, I'm Michelle Hunley, Manager of Communications, External Communications. So this is very similar to what we talked about during May as well. So there's a couple of numbers that are on that information. So one number is customers affected, and then the other is outages, right? And so customers affected are individuals, outages are, circuit-wide, larger sections. And so in terms of that, some of them may be nested outages that we talked about also during May, where you have one group of people that may be affected individually than other people, right? And then also it's changing, it's fluctuating, like Paul mentioned earlier. So some folks may, including in our assessments is also our cut and clear crew. So the cut and clear crew are the guys that, as they're assessing the lines, they go, oh, here's a tree, right, on this power line, and they'll come in and cut and clear it, right? And sometimes just that cut and clear may cause some of the lines to help re-energize and get that quicker. So the numbers are going to be fluctuating throughout the day. So like right now, it might be 1.6, and in a couple of hours, it might be 1.9, a couple hours later, it might be 1.2, right? It just depends. As we continue to assess, as we continue to make our way and working and re-energizing, those numbers are going to fluctuate.
Can I just ask a question here in terms of why would it go back up? If it, because you said 1.6, 1.9, so what would cause it to go back up? And I do want to know, my impression in the past has been that internally you guys do have a sense of what's out. So just want to confirm that you guys do have those numbers internally.
Yes. Yeah. So our internal processes tell us who's on, who's off, and we have that information. But to answer your question, again, as sometimes we have to de-energize in order to re-energize other sections, right? And so throughout the process, and you'll hear this from our customers as well, I had power, now I lost it again. Right? It's because we're trying to energize other sections, and we have to de-energize one section in order to fix the problem for another section and then re-energize again. So that's really, it's just a process. It's that's just the way the system works, and we're doing our best to re-energize everyone as quickly as possible. And we really want to thank our customers because we know it's tough. It's tough out there. It's hot out there. We want to thank you for your patience. Thank you for your support of all the linemen and women that are out there and the vegetation folks that are working hard. Thank you so much for your support of them too, because it came here from other states, to help us. And so, any support you can give of them, we truly appreciate.
The judge wants you to talk about how long they may be de-energized. A couple hours.
It depends.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so the question is, if they, they're saying that some people may have to be de-energized in order, because for whatever mechanical reason, electrical reason, you have to take them down. So I was just hearing, just to confirm, Paul, it's not, if you had power and they have to de-energize you in order to help the entire system, it's going to be a matter of hours, not matter of days.
Oh, absolutely. No, not matter of days.
Okay, so I'm hearing not matter of days, matter of hours.
So,
Yeah.
obviously, everybody's at their wit's end. Are you frustrated at all with CenterPoint and how they're handling it?
I mean, look, I also don't have power, and I live in apartment buildings, so to climb up the stairs yesterday after, working all day, all night and working all day. So I'm not happy either. None of us are happy. The sense that I get, though, as I said earlier, in having worked with Mr. Locke for through several events, is that they're operating in good faith. Now, I have heard some things that are concerning, and I'm hoping, Paul, that you can answer this. So one of the things that I know people have heard is, well, I talked to linemen that were outside my street, on my street, and they said that they'd been waiting for hours for instructions. And so that's one of the questions I had for him. Yeah.
Well, one, I would want to say thank you, Judge, for bringing that to our attention, because we were not aware of that. And actually, we have 3 examples of that, and as soon as I heard about it, I notified our senior electric management team, and they weren't familiar with it, but they plan to rectify that problem as soon as possible, because these guys are getting paid by the hour, they're making very good money, and it's not efficient for them to be sitting around while people are inside their house sweating. So I've been with CenterPoint 25 years. This is the first time I've ever heard of this happening. So.
What else? Yeah, I really want to encourage, because it's hard for us to sift through every question online. So I would really encourage for the press here to just, whatever you guys have heard.
I asked him earlier, I think this was just about, from your standpoint, give the customer some reassurance. I mean, it sounds like we're in for 3, 4, 5 more days of this.
Yeah, I mean, I was here during Ike. I was little. I was in high school, so I don't remember everything about it. It's been a minute. What I do know is it took weeks sometimes. During the derecho, we had talked about this might take weeks because those towers had fallen. In the end, CenterPoint figured out how to go around the towers so that it could be faster, and it was a matter of days. Still too long, okay? Still too long. I met some families, young woman with a teeny tiny baby, fragile elders with serious medical issues that were coming for help. So that's why we've really worked to try to have our 211 system help respond, trying to get that federal aid so that if it takes longer to repair the home, besides the electrical part, that people can get support. What gives me hope is that we have not discussed this is going to be Ike, it's going to take many weeks. I don't like, for example, these stories about the linemen. I think we all believe they're true, right? We're hearing it from credible people. So I don't like that there's this new situation that they've never encountered before. But I think I'm more hopeful than not, because we're being able to bring these questions to the company, and they appear to be working on them. So right now, after every disaster, whether there's water in homes, whether there's no power, when it's miserably hot, yeah, I mean, heat makes us all angry, makes us all frustrated. So we're not having a great time right now, but it doesn't have to be a life safety issue. We can all work together on that. We have more support from the federal government. We've got 10,000 linemen that have come down. They were boots on the ground yesterday. We have a company that's not in their interest to not solve this financially. So I would just say to people, hang tight with us. Don't panic. Don't panic. There's no reason to on the fuel. There's no reason to on the food. And it's hard just psychologically with the heat, but I do believe we'll get there. Now, if I get the opposite sense, if it seems to me that they're dragging their feet, that they're not listening to concerns the public has, I'm going to share that. But I have heard, for example, I think that some folks were saying, well, they never had anyone staged. There were no crews when I know for a fact the crews were staged and the crews were here. So that's the kind of thing I just think, we're all looking, we're all upset, and what I'm trying to figure out is with a level head, parse out, are they acting in good faith? Are they not? And right now I'm on the first side. So anyway, yeah. So what other questions do you guys have?
For CenterPoint, about the power alert service. So many customers are getting notifications as they should, but some others are either getting no notification related to their address, or they're getting no notifications at all. And some of the people who are saying they're having problems signed up recently, but some of them signed up a long time ago, and they've gotten the notifications in the past, and right now they're not. So why is the power alert service not working for all customers, and what portion of customers appear not to be receiving proper notifications as intended?
So our understanding is our power alert service is working. Now, I'm not saying that folks aren't getting their messages. We need to double check on maybe there's a certain zip code, because there have been telecommunication issues as well. I have a personal experience where yesterday, my cell phones, both my work mobile and my personal mobile, which are two different carriers, I couldn't get a call in, out, text in, out, nothing. I couldn't get Wi-Fi, couldn't get anything. So I think there's also some telecommunications issues, and some of those may play a role because PAS, Power Alert Service, comes through what the customer requests. So they may request text, they can request a phone call, or they can request an email, right? And so if they're requesting phone calls and texts and their telecommunications is down, they're not going to receive them. Same thing if they're not receiving Wi-Fi, they may not be receiving their emails, right? So I think it's part of that for sure, but we're certainly looking into to make certain that those that are signed up for PAS are receiving their alerts.
So you're not aware of the system having any problems?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Okay. Also, the outage map, obviously that's the big question. Everyone's asking,
Sure.
why is it not online? When is it going to be online? And why is it taking so long to get back online?
Sure. So our outage map in May during the direct show, based on the number of customers that were trying to see the map, as well as third parties, vendors that were taking information from our map, basically overloaded the map, right? So we had to take it down. And so we are working on a map that's going to be cloud-based, and it should be coming in fairly soon, probably by the end. It won't be for this particular situation, but it should be coming in the next few weeks. And then we're also working on a final plan that will be coming later after that. But for now, this cloud-based system should be coming soon.
Do you think we're going to have that in place for the next storm, which could be any minute?
I don't know when the next storm will hit. But we certainly are working on that, that cloud-based system that will be coming in the next few weeks.
What about the infrastructure? Is there anything that can be done to be better prepared in the future? I mean, planning-wise?
Are you talking IT or physical?
Physical.
Yeah, so we filed a resiliency plan with the Public Utility Commission of Texas to harden our system. During the last legislative session, a law was passed requiring all companies like CenterPoint to file a plan with the Public Utility Commission of Texas to harden their system. And I think we filed approximately $2.1 billion plan. So yeah, we're working to do it, and we're already doing it now. I don't know if you've noticed some of the new poles we're putting in. They look a little different. They have a different color to them, but they're a lot sturdier. So yes, there's a plan.
How do you guys decide who gets the power first? Like what section of
Okay, I'm glad you asked that, and I meant to cover it. So the first thing we do is restore power to critical facilities, like hospitals, water supply, places like here, fire departments, police departments. We want to make sure the backbone of the region is covered. And then from there, we go and say, okay, where can we get the most customers on in the quickest amount of time? And then after that, typically what you see is a section of town where there's only 2 or 3 customers without power, and they've got 5 trees down, on their power lines, and it's a long, difficult job. So it's priority customers, and then we're working at the most on as quickly as possible.
I have a question for the county judge. Yeah. Certain outlets are reporting 2 carbon monoxide deaths in Harris County, but they're citing a state official. I was wondering if you had heard of any carbon monoxide deaths?
You know, I got an update just before I came down here, and that was not in it. They may still be verifying. Let me turn to Mark Sloan if you've heard something. No, so we'll verify when we get back upstairs, and we'll let you guys know. I certainly hope that's not the case. And of course, Chief Christensen's not here, but you're reminding me, and I know she's out in the field with her crews, is, you know, people try to run generators, and it bears repeating that make sure that you run them well away from your home. Sometimes people put them right on the awning, and then the carbon monoxide just kind of pools and ends up causing problems. And so yeah, I mean, that's a big one.
I've been hearing from customers that, you know, this is a customer question I've been hearing a lot. Why was CenterPoint so underprepared, knowing that a hurricane could have impacted the upper Texas coast, and why were support crews not in place before the storm?
Safety. Safety reasons, that's our core value. And I'll tell you, we handled this storm the same way we handled the storm in May, where we got almost 1 million customers back on in 4.5 days. There's been no change in our process.
So just like the way that you were.
And remember, this storm changed. It was heading towards South Texas. And even then, we were still looking to get a small number of crews, but then in 24 hours, it changed. And again, remember, we can't send them out until we do our assessment, because we have found it's more productive if we do the assessment and then go send them out to where the need is, otherwise than just randomly sending them out. So it's painful for a day or two, but it's more efficient in the long run, if that makes sense.
Just one clarifying on that, sorry. When you say there weren't in place, you mean?
They were outside the region waiting for the storm. They were close because we had some working Monday. And then now everybody's here today. So.
That was my question. On Monday night, I mean, you said 12,000 finally now, but on Monday night, how many were here?
It's hard to say. It could have been 1,000. It could have been 2,500. I mean, it was a much smaller number.
And I've also heard from customers asking, are the crews working throughout the night? Are they working overnight?
Yes.
One other customer question I got is someone saying, how do I know if the call I got saying my power's back was actually real? Because I'm staying 40 minutes away, and it would be helpful to be able to check online. I've seen many people say the calls are not accurate. Are you hearing from any customers saying the calls they're getting are not accurate?
I haven't heard.
No.
I haven't heard that question, but what I've heard is people get their power back on and then they lose it for whatever reason, but it eventually comes back on. That's what I've heard, but I haven't heard the telephone thing.
Okay. I've also heard questions from people asking, kind of, this has a little bit been addressed already about your prioritization
Yeah,
framework, but specifically about commercial versus residential. Like, you know, I've heard a person asking, you know, I feel like the Whataburger has power, my office downtown has power, but the homes don't have power. So how would you address that?
Yep, so we don't make a difference. There is no differentiation between commercial and you know, and residential. So Paul mentioned how we restore. So when we start restoring power, the way it works is kind of like an outlet, right? So we have to start with the substation, check the substation area, and then we take the substation and we go down the line out into the communities, right? Because you want to start at the source of the power and then start restoring along the line, so that once you get down to the end, everyone's been restored along that line. Does that make sense? So there is no, like, we don't pick and choose communities, and that's not what we do. We start the power source and we work our way out. And then back to what Paul was mentioning, as we're doing that, we go circuit first, right? And then we start going down to the more individualized sections that are more distinct or have more issues, right? And then also we want to remind our customers that as this restoration process continues, to take a look at their weatherhead and their owned infrastructure, because even if like let's say their entire neighborhood is up and running and they are not, more than likely it's probably a weatherhead issue where it's their own infrastructure. They're gonna have to get it fixed themselves, and then we can come back and restore them. So that's also sometimes, I know there's questions from customers who go, well, everybody across the street, it has their lights on and we don't. 2 reasons: they may be on a separate circuit than everyone across the street, number one, and then number 2 is they may have a weatherhead issue and they need to get that fixed.
Another question I'm hearing so much of is so many people are asking why we're not burying the power lines, and if that's something that we can look at in the long term. I think people are asking, if we're this affected by a Category 1 storm, and this is the place where we get hurricanes, like, why aren't we looking at a system like burying power lines? And is that just something that's not feasible?
Yeah, so there's multiple reasons for that. So number 1 reason is cost. So if we bury all the lines, the cost of your electricity will rise significantly because it takes a lot of money to bury lines, number 1. And then number 2, there's a pro and a con to burying lines. So if you bury lines and it takes more effort to get to them when there is an issue and more cost again, right, than it is the overhead lines, number 1. Number 2, we are the Bayou City, and so we have, wet underground. We have a lot of, different pipelines, utilities, things like that. We're an older city as well, so there's a lot of other infrastructure underneath that may, not allow us to bury lines in certain areas of town. But also, to Paul's point earlier, we did file a resiliency plan, and in that resiliency plan, we do have plans to underground some lines that would make sense, right? Like, for example, transmission lines over highways, where we've got in the plan that we're going to try to underground those types of lines. So where it makes sense and where it's cost effective for the customer, we're looking to bury those lines.
I was also wondering, so on the city side, not the county side, they only have 1 cooling center that they've opened, and so I believe that must mean that they have locations that must not have power.
I'll take
And
that.
so I'm wondering if
I'll
that's
take
also
that.
a priority, is
Yeah.
getting like multi-service centers, like public facilities, so that they can serve as cooling centers.
We have a list of the counties and the cities' cooling centers, and they are on our priority list. And why the city only chose to go with 1, I don't know. But they're on our priority list, so if they should lose power, we would be out there immediately.
And let me add something, actually. I failed to mention earlier, people can find the 14 cooling centers on readyharris.org, and they're pretty spread throughout the county, as I understand, including the city near. So we'll see how many people come, but I'm quite sure that the 14 is adequate, just because there are other areas where people can go and cool down throughout the day that they may want to go to besides cooling centers, where they may be able to do an activity or whatever. So anyway, we'll certainly be looking at that, though, and happy to help out the city.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
I have more questions. You guys don't have any other questions for them? Okay, so I have my own list, Mr. Locke, if you don't mind. So one of the questions, excuse me? Oh, goodness. Our ASL interpreter has to go to the mayor's office. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, thank you so much. Oop. All right, so questions that our office has received. What is CenterPoint doing to get power back as quickly as possible? Anything to add on that?
We've got 12,000 people here. I think that's the best we could do, and we're working 24/7. So I think we're doing everything we can do.
Okay. Hope the mic caught that. We talked about the timeline, vulnerable populations. Why were mutual assistance crews not staged before the storm? So I think you've clarified they were staged.
No, they were outside the region.
Okay.
So they were outside the region, and they typically come in once the storm passes to the staging site. And remember, until the storm passes, we have to wait to do our assessment so that we know where to send the crews once we put them to work.
Okay. I think that everything else has already been asked.